down to digital literacy. So you look at people that understand how the internet and all of these digital tools can benefit them, and those that don't understand. And a large part of that audience are the older generation. They just like things the old fashioned way. They don't want to be online. They want to stick to what they know. And if you're Amish, that might work for you. But if you're, anywhere else, it really becomes a difficult endeavor if you don't understand how to use these tools. And so bridging the gap is changing to not only accessing the internet, but now it'll be access to AI.
Thanks for joining us again for another episode of the 21st Century Engineer. We have a really interesting, really exciting conversation today about opportunities to engage with your colleagues, your peers, your supervisors, but more importantly, the industry as a whole, both in terms of learning and in terms of contributing to a conversation of change and impact. We're looking at effective ways, economical ways, sustainable ways of improving the conversation, not necessarily encompassing all of the conversation, but certainly starting a conversation that I think can be important. And so learning about how the digital world is moving into the professional environment and providing opportunities for change, I think is extremely important. I know I'm finding it interesting, both in terms as an engager and one who is engaged in those conversations. Today, a young lady's with us who actually engaged me not too long ago to have a conversation. Tiffani Neilson is an individual who works with and for ITO Marketing, and they have a substantial footprint in web conferencing, which, if I may say, Tiffani, I think is quite impressive. Not only in terms of the volume, but having participated the process, the content, the format, the production value, the engagement value. I think you do a great job. And that's kind of the reason why I asked you to come here, because I'd kind of like to pick your brain a little bit and share that expertise. And in that regard, I think the people that are tuned in today are going to really learn a lot. So thanks for being with me.
Thank you so much, Dennis. I'm really happy to be here today, and I appreciate you inviting me to be your guest.
Super. For those who don't know, and I don't have any handle on what that number might be, but there's probably one who doesn't know who you are, what you're doing at IoT Marketing. Could you kind of give us a little bit of an oversight as to what you're doing, how you're doing it, just in an overview, and then maybe something that's coming up on the horizon?
Sure. So I'm Tiffani Neilson. I'm the CMO of IoT Marketing, and I'm also the creator and host of our virtual event series and our Industry Insights webinar series and our Tech Scope News. So to tell you a little bit more about IoT Marketing, clearly we offer marketing services, but we also do host these incredible events. And I'll give you some backstory here. So I just kind of saw the pandemic coming from a distance, and I suggested that we quickly pivot to webinars. So we started the Industry Insights webinar series, where we talk about how technology is used in a new industry each month. And at first glance, it seems so simple, but it's not. Every industry is so different. So we would go through and talk about why that specific industry is using technology, some of the challenges that technology is solving, as well as some of the challenges that the technology represents. Take a look at the technologies and provide forward-looking thoughts. And that was great. We covered 33 different industries, and we attracted a great audience of professionals that were looking for guidance on digital transformation. And as we continued to go down these industries, the events got longer. And so we decided to shift formats. So we decided to move towards summits. So now we hold 5 major events a year: an emerging trends forecast in January, a Green Things Summit, which you just participated in, Dennis, every April, and an Intelligent Thinking AI Summit in July, and then a Summit of Things in October, which is a 3-day virtual event. And that kind of ties in all the advanced technologies. And then we also do an Industry Insights Emerging Tech Awards every December. So 5 big events and a monthly news show. And to tell you just a quick snippet of my background beyond that, I was VP of marketing for a company called GeoTrack, where we had created the world's smallest cellular module. And so that was an interesting venture. And prior to that, I was an author, a TV show host. I
Mhm.
built a pet social network with 100,000 members. And I was an event coordinator hosting over 1,000 events in Ohio. So that is a little bit about me.
Super. That's excellent. And obviously, that wealth of experience, both the depth and breadth of what you've been through, is reflected in the product that you're coordinating and producing for IoT marketing. And I can certainly, again, firsthand attest to that. If for no other reason, then you were smart enough not to invite me to the seminar on intelligence. With So, with that, I'd like to delve just a little bit further about this digital game changer that we're talking about. This idea of moving to a digital platform, and there's certainly an inhibition or an inertia that has to be addressed or overcome. So, what do you see as the primary barriers to somebody getting into and moving forward with some kind of a or engaging in this kind of an environment, this kind of presentation format?
Thanks, Dennis. And I really look at the kind of turning point for all of this is the pandemic again, because the internet's always been a game changer. But when the pandemic came along, it shifted everything online. So your digital presence became so much more important as a result of the pandemic. Everyone's on their computers, on their phones, and everything's online. So having a digital presence just became super, super critical. And some of the challenges and barriers that exist for more people being digital first, which is kind of the new mentality that everyone's moving towards. First of all, it's cost, and there's the cost of devices, there's the cost of just having broadband internet. And I was really surprised when I did a little bit of digging just to make sure that I was up to date on all of my information, but only 57% of households earning less than $30,000 have broadband. While on the other side of the coin, 95% of those that earn more than 100K have broadband. So that's where we kind of get into this digital divide and, the access to these different opportunities. And access shouldn't, really be dependent upon geography or income, but it often still does. And it kind of
Yeah, I'm a Simon Sinek fan, and Sinek in one of his presentations talks about the fact that while there are early adopters, there's also that group of population that would still be using rotary phones if they could find them.
Mhm.
And that's certainly that true. There's people that learned how to program their VHS recorder eventually, for all the good that's going to do them today. So eventually, technology does move forward, and there's a lot of benefits that come from moving forward to embracing new. As I've said on more than one occasion, if it ain't broke, make it better. And so that's kind of what do you see? Because this is we could go into conversation and focus with me forever, but this is about your vision and broadening my vision, and for that matter. What do you see as the real advantages to moving to online platforms?
Well, from an environmental and logistical standpoint, less travel is meaning less emissions, and fewer flights and ground transportation means a smaller carbon footprint, which I really feel that we weren't really paying too much attention to until the pandemic as well. But, a single international conference can generate over 2,000 metric tons of CO2, primarily due to attendee travel. So transitioning to virtual events can reduce carbon emissions by they're claiming 94%. But I still find so much value in the traditional trade shows. There's nothing like a handshake or seeing a solution, come to life at a trade show, which is what I ran into at CES this year when I noticed this huge glowing globe on the trade show floor. And it displayed all these weather patterns. It had fires, earthquakes, lightning strikes, you name it. And I was so drawn in that I've ended up talking to the director of innovation and forecasting there, Scott McCarrow, and invited him to be a guest on the Green Things Summit this past year, as you were too.
Mhm.
And so there is a lot of value in the traditional trade shows, and I would hate to see them completely be done. There's a lot of advantages to moving online for sure. It's
Yeah,
also cost effective for attendees and sponsors because there's the travel and then there's the trade show booth, and that's just getting started. So,
Yeah, having done trade shows in my corporate life, uh, in fact, I even got an award for one that I did, but and that's only to provide some level of supposed credibility. Uh, it always seemed to me that there were people that would show up and be interested in learning, and then there are the people that show up and want that ticket or that punch or that scan so they were qualified for the door prize. And and trying to balance that, I mean, for sure there for the people that want to learn and that are open to whatever it is that you're proposing, whatever you're educating them about, whatever solution you're offering. um, the online system allows individuals to see and get a lot of that, but the tactile relationship as well as the networking, the communication still requires that face to face. But maybe online is a door opener rather than a door closer. Maybe it starts the deal, it doesn't end the deal. And I think that it provides opportunities for you to reach out and get connected. And more importantly, the people that reach out to you are people that are truly interested. They're not tire kickers, as we used to say. People go on a car lot. There's the tire kickers, and there's people serious about buying. And tire kickers are oftentimes just a waste of time, but it is what it is. Let's go back briefly and talk about this evolving landscape of technology. Um, for my podcast, for example, I've got an individual I was talking about, and he's not podcast savvy, though I'm trying to make him a little more savvy. Uh, and he thought podcasts were a little more than doing and I'm going to use the outdated, obsolete term, nothing more than a Skype recording. And I say Skype because of course, they've gone away now, as some other technology has, and other technology will. How do you see this evolving? I mean, this is more than just a Zoom or a team call. This is production time, right?
absolutely. I mean, we've gone through so many different platforms. I remember when we just got started and I went with a platform called Go Brunch, and it was very much like you were in a Pac-Man game where it was like you were literally moving your little icon, back and forth to conference rooms. And I thought that was, a breakthrough. But when it comes to even Zoom and what's capable on, Microsoft Teams or whatever you might be using, the ability for the AI to now generate summaries and insights is a game changer because it makes life so much easier, more direct, and you're really getting down to transparency, which is super important. And the fact that you're able to use these advanced tools to do so just makes it so much easier that it's a no-brainer to really make the most of those tools.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you mentioning AI in the context of a tool, because it really does take some of the, I'm going to call busy work or grunt work out of what's got to be done. At the same time, it provides value in terms of polishing or formatting or facilitating the what if. What if I eliminate this? What if I expand on this? What if I do this with the image or the volume or just simply the production itself? And it gives you this rapid comparisons rather than relying on decades of experience trying to do this kind of production work, which is in many ways really what it is. I mean, we're not making movies here, but we're getting darn close to it. And so that all plays back into this. Let me shift over into an issue I think is important for the listeners to understand, and that's the presentation. We talk about it in the academic environment. We talk about it in the workplace. That you really do have to be prepared when you walk through to start that presentation. Uh, any thoughts about what one needs to keep in mind with regard to starting or getting ready for a presentation?
Yeah. So when it comes to presentation, I mean, your presentation really starts with your identity and your digital presence. So the fact that you're online and visible and that people can find you if they were to look you up on, say, LinkedIn or anywhere else online, that's really the key to it all because it used to just be a business card. And I'm sure that everyone watching has a stack of business cards, if not, boxes of business cards somewhere. But now that everything's online, it's totally flipped the script. And so it's all about creating high quality content and content that converts. So if your content is well researched, if it's fact-based, if people find it valuable, if it's unique. Demonstrating your expertise is important, and showing that off through your content, being able to talk about your own experiences and really talk about it from a perspective of experience is really important. And it's important that you show up, and it's important that you show up on time. So I think that all those things really matter when you're presenting, and if you can make the material easy to digest, it's just going to be that much more comprehensible and convert that much better.
Yeah. I package it into the term being genuine. Uh, in the same regard, being prepared. You and I had another conversation, and you indicated to me, and it's a term I use, have used my entire career. You never get a second chance to make a first impression, and that first impression really does set a baseline for you to develop trust, establish your authority, and those are all important assets, we'll say, in terms of what it is that we're trying to do here, and move that through, regardless of platform, whether you're doing it, whether you're on a stage at a conference, or whether you're doing a podcast, or whether you're doing a webinar. It's being prepared, and it's being genuine. That process of picking the right platform and styling your message is something else that we've kind of danced around a little bit. And this is where I bow down and ask for help because you do it admirably. And I truly do mean that in all sincerity. The both in terms of who you are as an individual, packaging yourself and presenting yourself to potential clients, to potential speakers, to individuals, as well as packaging and presenting the opportunity that you are providing them. Could you speak to that a little bit? It's really, to me, as much art as it is anything else. And I'm an engineer, so not much of an artist.
Well, I'm definitely an artist at heart, so I could definitely speak to this one. And there are, a countless number of platforms out there to get your message heard. And it really depends on what message you're trying to send. So it's about what audience you're trying to reach and what message you want to send. So I'm sure that the people that know me on Facebook know a different side of me than the people on LinkedIn. But LinkedIn is really my go-to when I want to network. And it's insight driven content. And for me, that's where I usually spend most of my time if I'm trying to network, uh, build my community, whatever I'm trying to do. I usually stick to LinkedIn. But I mean, TikTok's great if you're into the more funny style, the fun style. There's platforms for everything. So it's really, what message are you trying to send? And just like I talked about, switching platforms so many times, we ended up creating our own event platform because we felt that was the best way to deliver our message. So it really just depends on what you're trying to achieve and what audience you're trying to reach.
Well, I agree. I mean, absolutely. And I know I thought it was interesting you did mention Instagram, which is fine. I'm not dumping on that one. But I know that I got on Facebook primarily because I wanted to find out what my daughters were doing. And once they found out I was on Facebook and I was on there to find out what they were doing, they stopped doing anything. So the effectiveness, yeah. And at that time, Instagram was someplace not unlike TikTok, where if I wanted to post a video of me having a hamburger in the backyard, I could do that. Now, snooze time, I don't, no, no, it's changed, of course. The platforms also morph. And like you, I have my Facebook persona and I have my LinkedIn persona. And I'm not saying I'm schizophrenic, or I certainly have read Jekyll and Hyde, but I'm not contending that I am Jekyll or Hyde. But they are. You said it correctly, and correct me if I misstate it, please. It's about targeting the market you're looking for using the platform you select. So for me, LinkedIn is a professional platform that I use to do a certain task. Facebook is another platform I use to do a certain task, and the rest and the other social media that I'm involved with. And Lord knows I've got too many to list here, nor would I want to. I have presence in other places for other purposes, and making sure that you pick the right platform. And I'd say personally, at least, and this is a question, I think keeping them segregated, leaving the work at home kind of concept is the best way to go. The example I'll give you is I wish people all the time happy birthday on Facebook. I never wish people happy birthday on LinkedIn. It doesn't mean the same people aren't there, and it doesn't mean they're not the same birthday. It's just not something I do. Do you think that's appropriate, or should you pull the curtain back a little bit?
It depends on how much time you have. Because, there's only so much time in a day, and you really have to pick and choose. So as much as, I've got tons of pictures that I could post on Instagram. Do I have time for that? Not as much. So it's really just prioritizing where you're going to spend your time. And for me, I'd rather spend my time on LinkedIn as opposed to Instagram. And, I still make time for Facebook, and I also do the happy birthdays on Facebook. But when it comes to LinkedIn, I might do a congratulations on your work,
Right.
uh, anniversary. But beyond that, I'm probably not going to spend too much time on wishing people a happy birthday on
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
So you're actively designing what it is, or how you're trying to have impact, or how you're delivering that message to lead to the outcomes you're looking for, and that takes some thought, and it takes some consideration, and it takes some planning too. It's important to do.
Well, they say
Um,
that proper prior planning prevents poor performance, so I'm a big
P to the seventh power. Yeah,
fan. Yes.
absolutely.
So I always
Actually,
strategy.
you forgot the bio function part of that, but that's okay. We'll make it P
I
to the
can't
sixth
say.
power. Okay. Um, just briefly, along the idea of presentations, I have the first presentation I ever made in my life. I'm not going to belabor this with you, or we would never get finished, and you'd probably be asleep by the time I got finished. But basically, I went and made a presentation on a research project that I was tangentially involved in. I didn't write the paper. I edited the paper. Didn't write the paper. I had a presentation. I had a set of slides, and to date it, yes, they were 2x2s and a carousel, and which I loaded and was ready to go. But I was just handed a presentation. Now, I could have gone two ways with this. I could have walked in and simply said, "Okay, here's my slide deck," and read the script, or I could prepare and know what the script said, so I wasn't relying on it, and have the slides to augment what I was saying, or use the slides as an outline rather than the script. Personally, I think that's the better way to go. Again, it goes back to that being genuine. Any insights?
And it comes down to exactly what I look for in speakers and people that are going to participate in our virtual events. I look for somebody that I feel is truly an expert. And that person to me is someone that I could throw any question at and they would be able to answer it. And I could think of at least 10 off the top of my head that have really stood out above the rest that could just talk about anything. And I could ask them the craziest question and they could just run with it because they know the material, they're experienced. They know exactly what I'm talking about and they can explain it well. And so I think that when you're presenting, I think that's such an important piece of it is that you are able to not only do the elevator pitch, not only pitch your presentation, but if someone has a question, be able to answer it. If your slides get mixed up, that you're able to present, even if that's the case.
Oh Lord,
Which I've had to do before. And I, I've had it to where I wasn't able to see my screen in a certain scenario when we were first getting
yeah.
started with the webinars, and I just had to. I knew the content, so I knew what questions to ask, and I just had to trust that I knew what I was doing. But if I would have been so reliant on reading the script, I would have been lost, and it probably wouldn't have came across very well.
Yeah, I totally understand. And going back to my analogy, slide number 13 was the one slide I hated. It was too busy, had too much information on it. I was only interested in about six, it was six data points at the bottom of it. Everything else was superfluous to what I was talking about. Slide 13 jammed in the projector, and for 5 minutes, it was the only thing the audience could watch other than my face and the sweat forming on the top of my brow. Um, the only questions I got during the closing forum were related to that one slide. But yeah, we got through it. And a second caveat to that is exactly what you said. Our conversation for the seminar was supposed to last about 15 minutes. And we got into a conversation which expanded it to 26. Loved it to death, and we could have gone longer, but the 15-minute Q&A session became a 4-minute Q&A session, and yeah,
And that's
we
okay.
got them answered. That's all we can say. But you have to be adaptable also, because
Yes.
things happen, and things come up that are important to address. So just because you're running a time frame, like today, there's important things to talk about and share, and you make the judgment of how much of that gets shared and how much you move forward. Which then brings me to another segue, if you will. The content that gets presented as part of a presentation, it matters as much as the way the presentation is presented. It gets back, you have to be genuine. You can't just be making stuff up. As much as you know, we our earlier conversation again that I'm referencing, the Green Things Summit, where I talked about the fact that if you've got data that you don't want anybody to see, the easiest thing to do is hide it in a whole bunch of data, and it gets lost. That's not what you're trying to do here. You're trying to recognize certain issues as far as being effective, and how you make presentations. I'm just wondering, with all the work that you've done and all the formats you've done and all the places you've done it, live, uh, remote, digital, Memorex. That's an old reference nobody gets other than me. But anyway, any thoughts you'd like to share on exploring things like the format, or how that's impacted by what you're doing, whether it's a podcast or a webinar or a live presentation versus a recorded one?
Well, again, it comes back to being adaptable and staying agile and just being able to know that, okay, well, this isn't working, let's go ahead and shift it. I mean, I we shifted through at least 7 or 8 different platforms before just deciding to build our own because it wasn't quite right. So it really comes down to, what is going to get your message across. And if something's not working, don't be afraid to stop and try it a different way, because maybe your podcast isn't resonating, but maybe if you did a webinar it would. And it really depends on, are you promoting yourself, are you promoting your brand, what exactly are you trying to do? And it's all comes down to intention and what you're trying to achieve. So I think the more that you're adaptable and the more that you're willing to fail fast and figure out what the solution is that needs to be uh, a part of whatever you're doing, I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, especially for your unicorn. Um, you just have to be. It's You just never know what that issue is. The other part of that too is, I think, why are you doing it? I advocate for individuals being change agents, servant leaders. The term I think you've used is purpose driven. And I think all of those are consistent and correct. I mean, the idea here is, you've got to find your passion. You've got to move forward. Any thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's the same as when people come up with a new technology, that sometimes they come up with a technology looking for a problem to solve, and other technologies come about and they were designed to solve a problem. And those ones are going to be the ones that stick around. So while there were countless numbers of broadcasts, podcasts, webinars that started around the same time that we did during the pandemic, ours stayed because we were solving a problem. We knew that as a result of the trade shows going dark, that people were going to need connected solutions now more than ever before. And where are they going to go? Well, they ended up coming to us because we were able to present the material to solve a problem. So, by bringing in experts and industry leaders and solution providers for these powerful conversations that really resonated with the deep industry challenges that are in each industry, we were really able to attract and retain our audience. So, yeah, that's what I think about
Yeah,
that.
but excellent point, and I applaud you for what you did. I was working, well, I'll just put it out there. At the time, I was an officer, a presidential officer in ASCE, and the pandemic unfolded on us, and we were looking at issues. It's really changed the way the American Society of Civil Engineers operates in terms of its conferences, both for the institutes and for the annual conference, the contracts you write, the other things you have to deal with. But the thing we struggled with right out of the gate was how do we present this in a digital format that is invaluable? The term you used with me earlier is it noise or is it problem solving? And I think that's right on more. I mean, you can go through the motions and do it, but why? If you don't do it, if you're not solving a problem, if you don't do it in a way that facilitates solutions, it's also my argument against a lot of those trade shows we talked about. I go and sit in, have gone and sat in on the technical presentations, and they're little more than a trade show presentation. This is what my company did. This is why we're great. I'm not going to tell you how we did it, so you can't learn anything, but we're patting ourselves on the back. It's like, that's not why I'm here. I'm trying to learn what you did so I can take it forward and learn from the competencies. And the shows are getting better about that. But again, I think the format that the digital format provides a real opportunity to push that authenticity, to allow that communication, to provide real talk and be powerful in the presentations. And this is where I want to pivot next, because as we said in preparation for our conversation today, this podcast is really intended, focused, if you will, impacting, I hope, young professionals in largely the infrastructure environment. But I'm talking about people who are either entering the marketplace, preparing to enter the marketplace, or people who have entered the marketplace and are moving up the food chain, the professional environment, whether it be consulting or industry or working for an agency. It really doesn't matter to me. They're professionals or pre-professionals that have the potential to be impactful, to be the best version of themselves. And I hope that we're helping in this conversation today and others. I'd like to get your perspectives on how we turn the spotlight on to attract these young individuals into this arena, and so that they can see, or is it happening naturally? Is it because these young professionals, like the young people that they are, just say, hey, I'm going to listen to a podcast instead of listening to music or news or whatever? How do you see it? Is this something they're doing automatically, or is this something that we can help facilitate?
Well, I think for younger professionals, there's a natural tendency for them to be more tech savvy than some of the older generations just
Okay.
because they've been around it. So I
Okay.
think that there's that natural tendency there. But, there's a certain pressure that goes along with it because, well, more eyeballs in a digital space, sometimes, it can be a little intimidating. And even in a physical space. I mean, I remember when I was considered a young professional in the tech industry. And I was at
You still
GeoTrack.
are, in my opinion, but keep going.
But I remember being at GeoTrack and going to some of my first IoT conferences. And I had so many questions. I mean, everything was so complicated and so new to me that I was always out there in the audience raising my hand. And some of my, the favorite people in the industry were the moderators, and one of them being Steve Brummer. And I can remember him always, just shaking his head when I would come Q&A time, my hand would go up in the air, and he would always come up and talk to me after the fact and say, all right, kiddo, and so now that it's a totally different set of questions I'm asking him, and he's on my stage instead of me being in the audience, it can definitely shift. But I remember, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to seek a mentor, because it will be a game changer. If you're unfamiliar with what you're doing, seek someone that knows what they're doing. And then that way it won't be as intimidating. It'll be easier, your results will be better, and you'll have someone there to guide you. And I think that's my best advice for the younger professionals out there is, explore. If you don't even have the courage to ask someone, ask the AI now. It'll give you the answers that you need.
Absolutely. Oh, so you hit so many pressure points. And working back, I had somebody ask me a question online the other day based on a conversation that they were having, or somebody was having, uh, with Chad Smeltzer from Procurement, who we work with. And it was like, well, I don't know. Let me call up the AI. And I put in the first question and I typed it in, put up the second question, typed it in, third question, fourth question. But I mean, you don't you have an internet? I'm sorry. I thought you were connected. This is out there. Everybody can find it. It's readily consumable. The other piece, the other side of this too is that connectivity, that impact, and looking for ways. For some reason, not really, but for some reason, I would say it doesn't surprise me, and well, I guess it really doesn't surprise me in the slightest that you're the person that was in the meeting with your hand up during Q&A. The only thing that surprises me is that you waited for Q&A to raise your hand. Uh,
Sometimes.
but okay, maybe you didn't. Maybe you didn't want to admit that. But to the young professionals that are to listening to us today have this conversation, you have to be inquisitive. You have to. You have. I call it subject area expert. You have to know. You have to ask. You have to question. And when you have the answers as to why X is right and Y is not, why A is good and B is bad, or maybe just not as good as A, what the opportunities are and are not, what the considerations are. Once you understand this through conversations like we're having and asking the questions, then you're prepared. Now you're armed. Now you're ready to go to what I've said, what you've heard me call the dinosaurs in the environment that roam their planet, that keep them from moving forward, and either move the dinosaurs around or figure out how to ride them. And I mean that somewhat facetiously, but the idea here is, well, maybe not. I don't know. We'll work that out. But the idea here is that the only way we get change in some of these environments is to be ready, armed, and prepared to be the kind of change agent that we want to be. And that doesn't come by passive consumption of information that is out there. I go back to the earlier comment. Are you solving a problem, or are you just being noise? If all you're doing is listening and you're not consuming, you're not embracing, you're not internalizing, it's noise. Go chew gum. I don't know. Go do something else. But if you're really out there wanting to be changed, and this is what I saw in you, this is what I see in you, and this is what I hear you saying. There's a real opportunity for those who want to be impactful to do it. It just doesn't come easily. It's not going to be handed to you to do it. Um, any any suggestions on how to shake the tree, as it were?
Yes. So AI is great and you can rely on it as much as you need to as a tool, but you want to be genuine and authentic and have your own message, your unique perspectives, your experience, draw from your experience. Don't just be someone that just repeats everything that the AI tells you. Like, and challenge where you're getting the information from, go to different news sources, go read a book, uh, like listen to
Whoa,
podcasts, like
that's
don't just
subversive now.
on the AI to tell you everything that you're looking to know and then just repeat everything it says. So the more that you're yourself, make it fun, make it something that people are going to remember. Ask them questions, get them engaged, be dynamic and know your audience, because if you don't know who you're trying to reach or anything about them, it's going to be really hard to resonate with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go back to my Simon Sinek reference, and that's develop a why. Understand why you're doing this, what it is that resonates with you. I oftentimes would call it find your passion. It's effectively the same thing. Why do you want to make change? What is it you want to do? What do you hope to accomplish? Get passionate about wanting to make that change, facilitate it. And you said it, and we've said it a couple of times here. Be genuine. Don't. I mean, if you don't believe it, don't say it. Don't back it. Don't support it. Find an alternative. Don't settle for second best when or for that matter, third best, or just don't settle. Look for as I said earlier, if it isn't broken, do better, and that's kind of the piece. Okay, well, we're coming to the end of the time that I can impose on you. As much as I'd like to steal another hour or so of your life, it's been a real pleasure. It truly has, Tiffany. And again, thank you for inviting me to be part of your summit. And I hope that you find that this time spent and invested with us today is one that will turn dividends for you in a multiplicity of ways. Is there anything you'd like to kind of part the audience with? Any last thoughts? Any key points that you feel we maybe have missed or you'd like to amplify?
Well, thank you for having me, Dennis, first of all. And I would be happy to talk to you for another hour or two, whether it's live or just a conversation. I really enjoy talking to you. So it's
Thank
been
you.
a joy to be here and to share my insights. And my last guidance that I would say is that if what you're doing isn't working, try it from a different angle. Try hitting a different audience. Don't give up. If you're really truly passionate about what you want to achieve and you feel that you're solving a problem, and just try pivoting a little bit, because sometimes it's the messaging, sometimes it's the platform. It just depends on what you're looking to achieve. And if you still can't figure it out, we do offer strategic consulting. And
Ah, good for you.
I'm
Well,
happy to be
it's needed. It's out there. Good.
guidance on that.
Well, again, Tiffany's with IoT Marketing, and if you are a curmudgeon or a dinosaur, the Internet of Things is, of course, the foundation of what we've been talking about and how that impacts the profession and professionals. And hopefully, those of you that have remained awake for this conversation have learned something. And if that is the case, I think Tiffany and I have achieved what it is we set out to achieve. Um, there are more of these, and they are all for you. We do this not because we want to be, I can take a photo of myself and record myself anytime, but at the end of the day, we do this. Tiffany and I both do this in the hopes that we have impact on your lives, make you a better version of who it is that you want to be so that you can achieve what your goals are, both in terms of your career and your life in general. And with that, I thank you for spending time with us today. And I thank Tiffany again for spending time with me. It's always fun. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. And I hope there'll be opportunities for us to share perspectives in the future.
Thank you, Dennis. And be sure to attend our upcoming events and news broadcasts. You can find out more information about all of it at iotmktg.com.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of the Infrastructure Network.